looking at the YouTube thing. So, okay. Very good. So let me just give a brief introduction. So hi out there in video land. Today, we're going to spend a little more time on Paradiso Canto 21. And then we're going to move on to Paradiso Canto 22. And with that said, Dee Dee.
Okay, just the very end of Canto 21, as I looked at it, I thought it would be worth going back to Peter Damian was a saint, and his criticism of the church, I think, was caused him to be a martyr. And the very last verse, the spirits are coming around, Father Damian's spirits. Round about this one came they and stood still, and a cry uttered of so loud a sound, it here could find no parallel, nor I distinguished it. The thunder so overcame me. So at that point, the sound that all of these spirits were making, I guess Dante fainted, which is what he frequently does.
He hadn't done that in a long time, though.
But frequently.
Okay. Yeah. And
we'll notice that when we reread how many, the fainting patterns.
How many faintings there are, right. And it is kind of shocking that that the spirits would make that loud of a sound.
Right.
It seems a little unusual. So it brings the question of why here? Why did they do that? And, I don't have an answer to that question, but it's in my mind. Okay. Anybody else have something they want to respond with Dee Dee, or another comment they would like to make about Paradiso 21?
We need our list.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to switch mine to 22 then. And we will go ahead and perhaps, Anne, you could make a reading list for us just so we have some idea. Do you know how to do the reading list?
I've not done it before, but I don't mind. I'll try.
Good.
Okay. Just
Trying to get organized.
Yeah, just click the chat.
And put in our names.
Yeah, to everyone.
And write out everybody's names, and then click that. There's a little arrow in the chat box. Click that and it'll appear on everybody's chat.
You see where it says to everyone?
Yeah.
That's where you write the names.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So we'll start with Duncan.
Okay.
Duncan.
Okay. So, John, all I can tell you, since you unfortunately had to miss some of the readings, is that there's been a lot to talk about in these most recent Paradiso. I believe we're going to get a little bit of a break now. We're quite so intricate, but there was a lot of unusual features. And there was a whole thing where Dante was questioning, why certain things happen. And basically this, he was told that, he just has to accept some things. And, should not expect that just because he has a question that it deserves an answer. And the interesting part about that is, while Dante agreed with that, he also persisted with the question.
Yeah.
And probably the dominant question had to do with the people who were only described as the good man on the Indus River, who had no chance to ever hear the gospel. and another figure just called the Ethiopian. And these were people who geographically could not hear the gospel or be baptized or hear about Christ. And if they were so good, why would they be condemned to the inferno? And that's what he was told. Hey, that's just the way it is. That's the regulations around here. So just back off. And he kind of went, okay, I'm backing off. But I'm still wondering why they had to go to the inferno.
Well,
Or
back,
they were wondering why so-and-so would be found in Paradisia, in paradise, who couldn't have had the experience of Christ.
Yeah. We had Trajan. I think you already knew about Trajan. Trajan from the Trojan Wars, who was a good man that some Pope, I can't remember the Pope's name, the Pope decided that this man should be saved, and he prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed, and Trajan was brought back to life just long enough to be baptized. Then he was put back in the grave, but he was going to be put in paradise. And there was some other character like that, which I don't think we ever got a real explanation about why they were saved, but seemed to be something similar.
And Old Testament kings too. The Maccabees and Joshua, Judas Maccabeus, it must have been.
So there's a very poor summary for you, John, but at least it'll give you some orientation. And now we're slowly starting to move out of the heaven of Saturn, although we'll spend a fair amount of time in Saturn today. And the other thing that I think is important to realize, according to Barolini, she said that the Canto 21 is important because it's where Dante shows that he knows that he's created this whole very complex thing and he can't go on forever. So he's got to figure out how he's going to wrap this poem up. And she claims that that's a very important part of what happens in the cantos from now on. All right, so I'm first. Here we go. Paradiso 22. Oppressed with stupor, I unto my guide turned like a little child who always runs for refuge there where he confideth most. And she, even as a mother who straightway gives comfort to her pale and breathless boy, with voice whose wont it is to reassure him, said to me, knowest thou not thou art in heaven? And knowest thou not that heaven is wholly all? And what is done here cometh from good zeal? After what wise the singing would have changed thee, and I by smiling, thou canst now imagine. Since that the cry has startled thee so much, in which, if thou hadst understood its prayer, already would be known to thee the vengeance which thou shalt look upon before thou diest. The sword above here smiteth not in haste, nor tardily, however it seemed to him who fearing or desiring waits for it. Next, please.
But turn thee round toward the others now, for very illustrious spirits shalt thou see, if thou thy sight directedest, as I say. As it seemed good to her, mine eyes I turned, and saw 100 spherules that together with mutual rays each other more embellished. I stood as one who in himself represses the point of his desire and ventures not to question, he so feareth the too much. And now the largest and most lucent among those pearls came forward, that it might make my desire concerning it content. Within it then I heard, if thou couldst see, even as myself, the charity that burns among us, thy conceits would be expressed, but that by waiting thou mayest not come late to the high end, I will make answer even unto the thought of which thou art so chary. Next.
The mountain on whose slope Casino stands was frequented of old upon its summit by a deluded folk and ill-disposed. And I am he who first up thither bore the name of him who brought upon the earth the truth that so much sublimateth us. And such abundant grace upon me shone, that all the neighboring towns I drew away from the impious worship that seduced the world. These other fires, each one of them, were men, contemplative and kindled by that heat, which maketh holy flowers and fruits spring up. Here is Macarius, here is Romualdus, here are my brethren, who within the cloisters their footsteps stayed and kept a steadfast heart. And I to him, the affection which thou showest, speaking with me, and the good countenance which I behold and note in all your ardors, in me have so my confidence dilated, as the sun doth the rose when it becomes as far unfolded as it hath the power. Next, please.
I therefore beg you, Father, can I rise to such a height of grace that I may see your unveiled image with my mortal eyes? And he then, brother, this shall be made known in the last sphere. Your wish will be answered there, where every other is, including my own. There, every wish is perfect, right, and whole, for there, and there alone, is every part where it has always been, for it has no pole. Not being in space, it is to that very height the golden ladder mounts, and thus you see why it outsoars the last reach of your sight. The patriarch Jacob saw it mount to lean on that very sill. That time he dreamt it, covered with angels beyond all mortal count. To climb it now, however, none makes haste to lift his feet from earth. My rule lives on only to fill the parchments it lays waste. The walls that were retreats in their good hour were dens for beasts now. What were holy cows are gunny sacks stuffed full of evil flour. The next, please.
But heavy usury is not taken up so much against God's pleasure as that fruit which maketh so insane the hearts of monks. For whatsoever hath the church in keeping is for the folk that ask it in God's name, not for one's kindred or for something worse. The flesh of mortals is so very soft that good beginnings down below suffice not, from springing of the oak to bearing acorns. Peter began with neither gold nor silver, and I with orison and abstinence, and Francis with humility his convent. And if thou lookest at each one's beginning, and then regardest whither he has run, thou shalt behold the white changed into brown. Next.
In verity, the Jordan backward turned, and the seas fleeing. When God willed, were more a wonder to behold that succored here. Thus unto me he said, and then withdrew to his own band, and the band closed together. Then, like a whirlwind, all was upward rapt. The gentle lady urged me on behind them, up o'er that stairway by a single sign. so did her virtue overcome my nature. Not here below, where one goes up and down by natural law, was motion e'er so swift that it could be compared unto my wing. Reader, as I may unto that devout triumph return, on whose account I often from my transgressions weep and beat my breast. Thou hadst not thrust thy finger in the fire and draw it out again before I saw the sign that follows Taurus and was in it. Next, please.
O glorious stars, O light impregnated with mighty virtue, from which I acknowledge all of my genius, whatsoe'er it be with you was born and hid himself with you, he who is father of all mortal life, when I first tasted of the Tuscan air, and then when grace was freely given to me to enter the high wheel which turns you round, your region was allotted unto me. To you devoutly at this hour, my soul is sighing, that it virtue may acquire for the stern pass that draws it to itself. Next.
Thou art so near unto the last salvation, that thus Beatrice began. Thou oughtest now to have thine eyes unclouded and acute, and therefore ere thou enter farther in, look down once more and see how vast the world thou hast already put beneath thy feet, so that thy heart, as jocund as it may, present itself to the triumphant throng that comes rejoicing through this rounded ether. Next, please.
My eyes went back through the 7 spheres below, and I saw this globe so small, so lost in space, I had to smile at such a sorry show. Who thinks that the least pebble in the skies I most approve? Only the mind that turns to other things may truly be called wise. I saw Latana's daughter glowing there, without that shadow that had once misled me, to think her matter was part dense, part rare. My eyes looked upon your son, Hyperion, nor did they falter, and wheeling close upon him, I saw the motion of Maia and Dione. Next I saw how Jupiter meditates between his father and son, and I understood why the motion of one and the other vacillates. And all the 7 in a single view showed me their masses, their velocities, and the distances between each in its purlieu. And turning there with the eternal twins, I saw the dusty little threshing ground that makes us ravenous for our mad sins, and saw it from mountain crest to lowest shore. Then I turned my eyes to beauty's eyes once more.
All right, great.
The dusty little threshing ground that makes us ravenous for our mad sin.
Okay, so I guess we will go now. We'll go back to the beginning and we'll start winding our way through these verses and trying to clarify anything that may bring us questions.
Okay, well, let's just start with some obvious questions. The guide at this point is who?
The guide at this point, I believe the guide is back to Beatrice.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, and
So-
I think starting with the first line, oppressed with stupor. The
Yeah,
stupor induced by that loud noise that all the spirits made at the end
okay.
of 21. So he was shocked,
Mhm.
and put him in a stupor. So I unto my guide turned like a little child who always runs for refuge where he confideth most.
Oh, I have two different translations here. One says, "My sense is real." There's a child in doubt, and the other, shocked in amazement, like a little boy, who's always runs back to the one in whom he trusts the most. So I turn to my guide.
Mhm.
So it's a little different than being in a stupor.
Yeah, it is. It is.
What was what was that first line, Tim?
My senses reeled, or shocked in amazement.
And here it's oppressed with a stupor.
But the Italian is oppresso di stupore. So oppressed with stupor sounds pretty literal.
Yeah.
And I kind of like it because I mean, here he is, he's been going through all these various heavens and everybody's kind of and very spiritual. And, you know, if they make any noise, it's kind of a harmonious song of some sort. And all of a sudden these spirits get together and they make a big noise like thunder. So I would think that would be a little shocking and might make one go, what is going on here? Okay. Anything?
I have some, well, I have some comments from the Dartmouth Dante. Okay, so it says these verses continue the action of the preceding canto, which ended with Dante being unable to make out the meaning of a thunder-like utterance, one of the loudest noises we hear from the pages of the poem, perhaps bringing to mind the similarly stunning noise of the infernal waterfall in the Inferno. The shout emanated from Peter and Damiani's outraged colleagues, departing from the silent meditation that marked their presence once they descended towards the sphere. Naturally enough, the protagonist, unable to make out their words, fears lest their rebuke, so loud as to be incomprehensible, is aimed at him. His apparent logic is clear enough. In this realm, if Beatrice does not smile, and if the souls do not sing, he must be being rebuked for something he has or has not done.
Hmm.
Mm. It's interesting because there's even like Dante psychology here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I like how we're told this is the loudest noise in the cantos in the comedy, and then the comparison with the waterfall in Inferno.
Right. Well, actually, in Derling, he makes two comparisons with other loud noises. One being the earthquake
Oh yeah,
in Inferno, and then the other one is actually in Purgatorio 20, which is the Gloria. With I guess the spirits there, do a Gloria in excelsis Steno. So, yeah. Okay. Shall we go? Let me go. Or someone else can read the next three lines.
Or maybe a little bit longer.
Okay. You read and you stop when you want to.
Okay. With voice whose wont it is to reassure him, the breathless boy said to me, knowest thou not thou art in heaven, and knowest thou not that heaven is wholly all, and what is done here cometh from good zeal? And what wise the singing would have changed thee and I by smiling, thou canst now imagine, since that the cry has startled thee so much, in which that if thou hadst understood its prayers already would be known to thee the vengeance which thou shalt look upon before thou diest. So just telling him why she didn't smile.
Well, before, but I mean now she's saying that that she is smiling. But it's very
No.
interesting. It's very interesting. Lines 7 through 9 and 10 through 12 are very different than 13 through 15.
But she wasn't smiling. I don't think.
I think she smiled.
No,
She
I think she's
He
telling him,
wasn't smiling when at the beginning of Canto 21.
but she has a reason for not smiling here. There's something he doesn't know. That's what the end of this explanation to him is telling him. Later, before thou diest, you will know the vengeance that is behind that noise and why I didn't smile.
Okay. The only thing I would say, you're right, she didn't smile in Canto 21, but she is smiling now.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Anybody else?
Because she puts the not smiling in the past tense.
In the past tense?
Yeah. Well, and she puts the present. Okay, so look at 10, 11, 12. And after what wise the singing would have changed thee, and I by smiling. So she's saying that loud noise and her smiling should have been a sign that things have changed for the better for him.
Dartmouth, Dante says explains that anger in the heavens cannot be produced by anything but righteous indignation. Wong Cello. Thus, the shout he heard could not have been directed against him, but rather against those on earth who offend in their desecration of the religious life. Once again, we are made to see how poorly prepared this mortal is for the higher realm. That would be Dante.
Yeah, because he misinterprets it. Because we had the action was we had Peter Damian, and then Peter Damian blasts the church. That's towards the end of Canto 21, where he's talking about how corrupt the church people are. And then right after Peter Damian does that, then all these spirits gather together and they, give out a thunderous shout. And that freaks Dante out. He doesn't realize, somehow he takes it personally, or he just doesn't know what the hell is going on. And that's why he's freaked out, and why Beatrice comes to reassure him. And part of her reassuring him, at least in my mind right now, is that she does smile at him now.
I know she's reassuring him, but I still think she's telling him why she's not smiling.
How do you explain line 11? At least the Longfellow's version of line 11. And I by smiling.
If I had smiled,
is that your translation? Is that a translation you're reading?
No, that's how I read that phrase. If I had smiled.
Okay, so what does your line 11 say?
It's the same. And I by smiling, thou canst now imagine, since the cry has startled thee so much, in which if thou hadst understood its prayers already, would be known to thee the vengeance which thou shalt look upon before thou diest. I think she's encouraging him not to feel that everything's all right now, that the rest of the story is going to be tough. The rest of his story is going to be tough.
Yeah.
Well, Dartmouth says it's proof that he was not ready to bear either her smile or the contemplative singing, both of which were for that reason withheld from him. The smile was withheld from him because he wasn't ready for it.
That's how it seemed to me.
Okay, all right.
But it was withheld. But I think at this point he is ready for it, so the smile
Yeah.
is recurring.
That's what I think. I think after the
Yeah, that's how
conversation
it
with
reads
Peter,
to
but after
me.
the conversation with Peter Damien, and after his other experiences, his conversations during Canto 21, that he has been prepared. But then they did the shout thing, and that kind of freaked him out. And now Beatrice is at least in my mind, smiling and reassuring him that
Mhm.
that shout was not for you, and that in lines 13 through 15, that this has to do with the vengeance. There's going to be vengeance, but it's not going to happen there. But it's going to happen later, before he dies.
Yeah.
That he needs to realize that vengeance is not always immediate. That it occurs at the proper time. That's how I interpret it. And I agree with what you read from Dartmouth, and in the sense that it seems like Dante's getting there, but he's still immature in many, many ways, which is why he freaked out at the big shout.
Mhm.
We should go on from 19.
Yeah. Okay, John, you want to do a little reading? Maybe just
Okay.
read enough verses that you think that we might have a question and we need to confer.
Okay, but turn thee round towards the others now, for very illustrious spirits shalt thou see, if thou thy sight directest as I say. As it seemed good to her, mine eyes I turned, and saw 100 spherules that together, with mutual rays, each other more embellished. I stood as one who in himself represses the point of his desire, and ventures not to question, he so fareth thee too much.
Yeah, I think that's good. And I made a mistake. I think if you don't mind, if you would go back and read lines 16 through 18, I think those are really important.
The sword above here smiteth not in haste, nor tardily, howe'er it seemed to him, who fearing or desiring, waits for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think those are particularly good lines. So this is that thing that vengeance comes in its own time, or comes at the proper time.
But among those who either have done something that they fear vengeance, or those who are hoping to see
Or
vengeance
vengeance.
from their enemy,
Yeah.
it seems late, or maybe it seems late to those who want vengeance on their enemies, and early for those who have done something wrong.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. It seems like the lines that you read, unless someone else has questions, I think they're pretty clear. So he says that, and then he's instructed by Beatrice to turn around, but turn thee round towards the others now, For the very illustrious spirit shall they see, if thou thy sight directest as I say. So, hey, Dante, look over here.
Mm.
And as it seemed good to her mine eyes, I turned. And I saw 100 spherules that together with mutual rays, each more embellished. Anybody got a good definition for spherules?
I have little globes of fire. Globes of fire.
Okay. And they're somehow clustered together and they're supporting and amplifying each other.
Each one is a saint though, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I read in Dartmouth. The 100 little globes are neither precisely 100 in number nor little globes, but a large number of descended saints who in their joy remember that they are spending eternity in the most joyful place there is. They make one another more joyous, as can be perceived by their increasing brightness.
Mhm. Mhm. And then I really like lines 25 through 27 as well. They're so human. And you want to read those?
25.
25 through 27, yeah.
Okay. I stood as one who in himself represses the point of his desire and ventures not to question, he so feareth the too much.
Is that not a great description of not wanting to overstep one's bounds?
Hmm. But of course, it's meant if you suppress your own, then you can have an outlook on what's going on around you. With all these globes of saints swirling, he has to put his attention somewhere beside himself.
Yeah, but I found, I mean, what is the Italian, John, on that line? It's the word represses that I find interesting.
Uh, repreme,
Repreme.
yeah, repreme, which seems to be about the same thing.
Okay. And I would say that implies that he did have a desire to question, but he just wasn't going to do it.
Hmm.
And in Canto 21, there was no sound, and he was asking why is so quiet. 59. They sing not here for the same cause that Beatrice has not smiled.
And that's on
Was it-
line
59 and in Canto 21.
And isn't that related to Dante's inability to understand? They don't smile and there's no sound.
According to what Beatrice told him about the smile, she told him that she wasn't smiling because at that level of heaven, if she smiled, it would basically fry him. That he couldn't
Mhm.
take the current.
It'd be like that simile or
Yeah, it'd be just like too bright of a light and it would just fry him out.
mhm.
So there's something, it seems like there was a change that happened to him after his events in Canto 21 and his conversation with Peter Damian, that suddenly matured him enough that he could, one, hear sound, and that he could, and Beatrice could smile at him again. But it still freaked him out.
And then at the end, there is this loud thunder,
Mm-hmm.
which was too much for him.
Together, brim, and then uttered so loud a cry that nothing could resemble it down here. Nor did I understand it. Its thunder so overcame me. All right, I'm going to read, let's see, 28 through 30. Okay, I'm going to read 3.
Do you know who's talking there?
Talking where?
Right, starting with 31 or 30, 31.
One of the spears, the pearls.
It's there, yeah, the largest and most luculent of the spheres.
Yeah,
And-
Saint
And
Benedict.
now the largest and most luculent among those pearls came forward, that it might make my desire concerning it content.
Saint Benedict, according to Sayers.
Yeah, I think it is identified later, right? It is one ventures
Yeah,
wide.
he mentions Monte Cassino a few lines later. And I guess he founded the Benedictine monastery there.
Mhm. Okay, lines 31 through 33. Within it, then I heard, if thou couldst see, even as myself, the charity that burns among us, thy conceits would be expressed. But that by waiting, thou mayest not come late to the high end. I will make answer even unto the thought of which thou art so chary. Kind of, hey, bud, if you knew what nice guys we were, you would come out and ask us what you want to ask us. But since you're being shy about it, I'm going to answer you anyway.
Reading his mind.
Dee Dee, you want to do some more reading?
Okay. That mountain on whose slope Casino stands was frequented of old, upon its summit by a deluded folk and ill-disposed, and I am he who first up thither bore the name of him who brought upon the earth the truth that so much sublimateth us, and such abundant grace upon me shone that all the neighboring towns I drew away from the impious worship that seduced the world.
Okay.
And now he's talking about other, I guess, Benedictines. We should keep going.
Well, let's make sure we have control of the 3 tercina that you just read. So, John, you identify Casino as a place where Saint Benedict established a monastery. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, and it actually became an important uh, repository for Latin manuscripts, or I guess many copies were made there.
Okay.
It's people who do
Scriptorium.
textual criticism on Latin authors often mention manuscripts from Monte Cassino.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
He,
So I get,
and it has nothing to do with this, but that's also the area where the Allied cemetery is from World War II.
Yeah, they destroyed, the monastery was destroyed by the Allies,
wow.
right?
the Allies?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
Yeah.
they were they were going after the Germans and thought, why wouldn't they be hiding in a monastery?
Mhm.
That push up Italy was
Yeah.
brutal.
Yeah, from the south up north,
Yeah.
So were the Germans there?
no.
No, even the Germans respected the monastery.
Oh, now you're reading between the lines, Duncan.
I am reading between the lines. Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I know that it was a gorgeous property and it
Mhm.
should have been considered sacred and not damaged during wartime. And it was destroyed by the Allies looking
Okay.
for the Germans.
Okay. And apparently, according to Dante here, that whole area was uh, deluded and nasty people until Benedict converted them.
Mhm.
Sayre's notes talking about he lived for 3 years in a cave in the Abruzzi, which must be where the monastery was built. That's what I'm leaping to. The monks of a neighboring monastery elected him as their abbot, but under his severe rule, they grew restive and tried to poison him. And he left them and went to Mount Cassino, where he founded his monastery at the site of an ancient temple of Apollo.
Ah, pagans.
So the impious worship was probably the Greek gods.
I'm a little curious. Is impious? I would have said impious.
Yeah, impious.
I don't know.
Impious, yeah, without reverence.
But where I got my pronunciation, which seemed normal to me.
No,
Yeah,
it's-
but you're there's two people who pronounced
Yeah.
it today, and that's why. And it may be correct for all I know, but
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I think in English it's impious, but I believe when I was reading that, Latin kicked in, where the I would be an E.
yeah.
So it's like Lima, but it's Lima, Ohio.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Okay. So he identifies himself, and then he turns and he's talking about the other sphere rules. Sphere rules. Tim, you want to read a couple of Tersima here?
I didn't hear that. Is that you said Tim?
Yeah, Tim.
Oh, okay. And where do we end? Where do we start?
I would start these other. I mean, he's identified himself. We got that part, and now he's turning to talk about the others. So, these
Line?
other fires.
46.
46. Mhm.
Okay. These other souls were all contemplatives, fired by that warmth of soul that summons up the holy flowers and fruits of blessed lives. Here is Romualdus, and Macarius too. Here are my brothers who kept within the cloister, and never strained, kept hearts sound and true. And I to him, the love you have made clear in speaking as you have, and the good intent I see in all the glories of the sphere, have opened all my confidence. It grows and spreads wide on your warmth, rejoicing in it as it does in the sun's heat, a full-blown rose. I therefore beg you, Father, can I rise to such a height of grace that I may see your unveiled image with my mortal eyes? And heathen, brother, this shall be made known in the last sphere. Your wish will be answered there, where every other is, including my own. There, every wish is perfect, ripe, and whole, for there, and there alone, is every part where it has always been, for it has no pole. Nor, not being in space, it is to that very height the golden ladder mounts, and thus you see why it outsoars the last reach of your sight.
Okay, great. Great. So this is interesting that even that this new spirit, I guess, Benedict, has actually had a more calming and strengthening effect on Dante than Beatrice did at the beginning. Or am I reading too much into it? But that's what it seems to me. He's still nervous when Benedict starts talking to him.
Well, Benedict's dates are 480 to 543. And he's the founder of what's considered the oldest monastic order in the West, which bears his name. Son of wealthy parents, he went to Rome to study. And then, as we've said before, he lived in a cave. He became head of a cloister. He has a very strict rule. They tried to poison him. He managed to survive the attempt on his life. Once again, retreated to his cave, and the monks, loyal to him and to his vision of life, eventually followed him to Monte Cassino, where he destroyed a temple of Apollo and a grove sacred to Venus, and converted the locals, who were pagans at this time, and he founded his order. What is it? Does anybody know the term synoptic? Cenobitic.
I know it's used in connection with the synoptic guide of the Bibles.
Yeah. Okay, because that word is mentioned in this description.
Of or constituting a synopsis, presenting a summary of the principal parts or general view of the whole, taking the same point of view, which is why they use the synoptic gospels, because there's three that are very similar, relating or being to the first three gospels of the New Testament, which share content, style, and order of events, and which differ largely from John.
John, what did you just put in chat? I can't hear you. Got your microphone on.
Oh, it's the
I
noise
had to
in the
mute
street.
because the road work and the house.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. You're describing what's going on right where you are. I thought, God, where in this canto was this? Okay, got it.
Noise, sinful endeavor. So he's answering, Benedict is answering Dante's question.
He is, and it's a very curious answer.
Well, he says that thy desires shall be fulfilled. That's 62. or 3.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm. Yeah. Thy high desire in the remotest sphere shall be fulfilled, where are fulfilled all others and my own.
But that really doesn't tell us what the question is.
The question was, he did ask, let's see. Oh, yeah. The desire in this case is Dante wants to see his face.
Oh, right, okay. But
Okay.
there was
Remember, he's presenting as a sphere, a bright light, a bright globe, but he's apparently speaking to him in a voice, and Dante gets enough confidence from the way Benedict treats him that he releases Dante's desire, which is, who are you?
But
I
that
want to see who
question that he's fearing came up in line 28, I think it is, before Benedict talked to him.
Yes, that's why I'm saying that it's very interesting that Benedict calmed Dante even more than Beatrice did.
But what Dante wanted to know before Benedict came in was something different, or
Mhm.
maybe all your questions will be answered at the end when you
I've read that it relates to the history of the corruption in the church and how it's going to be corrected, and that in Dante's time he will see.
Yeah. Well, that's a more mundane part of it, I think.
Mhm.
And then there's all these other questions which will only be, that to me is on a kind of a lower level desire. But I think we're getting into this whole thing where Benedict is saying all of our desires are answered when we get to the Imperium,
The remotest sphere.
the remotest sphere, when we get to the Imperium. And guess what? Here's the ladder. And if you look up this ladder, you'll see that you can't see the end of the ladder. It's still too far above you, but that's where we're going. So this is a trope, I think, that Dante is using to let us know that when we get to the end of that ladder, the commedia is coming to a conclusion.
Did we read 74 yet? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 75. Did you read that, Tim?
What?
The verse that
No.
starts 75?
No.
Oh, because that's kind of that's goes with this. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Why don't you finish that? Because that's the end of that thought, in a way.
Okay, so you want Tim to continue that? It's starting
Yeah,
at
just
what line?
one more verse. Yeah,
Okay, starting at what line?
70. I think it's 3, 71, 74.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that you go back, Tim, to line 70 and start there.
Well, I haven't read that part yet.
Oh,
Right.
okay. That's
I
what
ended with 69.
Oh, okay.
The patriarch Jacob saw it mount to lean on that very sill. That time he dreamed it, covered with angels beyond all mortal count. To climb it now, however, none makes haste to lift his feet from earth. My rule lives on only to fill the parchments it lays waste.
That's an interesting phrase there about the waste. Here it's the waste of paper.
It's not waste, it's a waste of the written, whatever's written on the paper, isn't it?
Sure, my rule below remaineth for mere waste of paper.
Yeah.
Nobody listens to me. I told them what
Yeah.
to do and they ain't listening.
Right. I wrote it down.
This, of course, is now, this is Jacob's ladder.
So we could keep going.
Yeah.
Who hasn't read in a while?
I can read what,
Right after waste of paper.
wait, what
Yeah.
number, give me the number.
76, line 76.
Okay, got it. Thanks. Hold on. Okay, the walls that used of old to be an abbey are changed to dens of robbers, and the cowls are sacks filled full of miserable flour. But heavy usury is not taken up so much against God's pleasure as that fruit which maketh so insane the heart of monks. For whatsoever hath the church in keeping is for the folk that ask it in God's name, not for one's kindred or for something worse. The flesh of mortals is so very soft that good beginnings down below suffice not from springing of the oak to bearing acorns.
Mhm.
Peter began with neither gold nor silver, and I with orison and abstinence, and Francis with humility in his his convent. And if thou lookest at each one's beginning, and then regardest whither he has run, thou shalt behold the white changed into brown.
What is
To
that?
finish the one more.
Okay, in verity, the Jordan backward turned, and the seas fleeing, when God willed were more a wonder to behold than a succor here.
So once again, like Peter Damien, we have a long involved complaint against the church.
Mhm. So the Dartmouth thing says, beginning and with the foot of Jacob's ladder, as it were, Benedict now rounds on the current members of his order. Their degeneracy is reflected in the crumbling physical plant of the monastery. In the attempt to find some use for the cowls of the monks, that's their clothing, since apparently those who wear them are few, as to use them now as bags of flour, in the flagrant usury employed by them, that the disgraceful harvest of their misguided LAVORO.
Okay, all right, that makes a lot of sense then.
Pretty
The walls
harsh
that used of
language.
old are changed to dens of robbers.
Yeah,
Walls are sacks filled full of miserable flour.
yeah, they're flour sacks now. And there's covetousness and misappropriating the revenues of the church, which rightfully belong to God's poor, to the purposes of nepotism and licentiousness. This is, in the sight of God, worse than sin of usury.
Yeah, this is strong language about the clergy.
Yeah,
It is very strong language, and as I just mentioned, it comes very soon after Peter Damien's screed in Canto 21.
mhm,
So this is a big deal to Dante, as it should be actually.
yeah,
The ability of institutions like a church to become corrupt are well deserving of fierce criticism.
The last two lines of that comment of
yeah,
Benedict's, and the seas fleeing when God willed were more a wonder to behold than succor here. It's almost like I'm taking this as it can happen in eternity in the afterlife, but it can't happen on the earth. That God won't or can't do what the story says God did. Can't or won't.
I'm a little confused, Sheila.
That power of God won't be used here, then succor here, then take comfort that God is going to straighten it all out, get rid of the bad guys. It doesn't happen here. It's just part of this story
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
mythology.
I think that is very connected with the idea of free will, frankly. That God has given everyone perfect free will, including the if you want to be a corrupt churchman, you can be a corrupt churchman. And I'm not going to stop you on earth. But watch out, buddy.
Yeah, if you want to find out what God can do, you have to do it. I'm not doing it for you.
My interpretation is actually a little bit different. My interpretation is assuming the doctrine of the judgment day, that we get to use our free will for whatever we want to use it for. And God is not going to say anything about it other than to, say that maybe that's not such a good idea. But on judgment day, when you have to account for what you did with your free will, that's when things happen. So that's going back into those verses, those earlier verses about retribution comes in its own time.
Right.
That it's not necessarily going to happen here on earth. That just because whether you want people to receive retribution or whether you deserve retribution, it will come when it comes.
Right. Either you will obey God or you'll disobey. And then
Yeah. And I will have to say that reading of Dante has brought me to this interpretation of free will and God's radical position when it comes to free will. We do have free will, and we will be judged by what we do with our free will.
and he's using his free will, Dante, the writer.
And Dante's using his free will, yeah. And this is actually going way beyond bounds here, but this is my argument about abortion. I don't think I need to argue with people about abortion one way or the other. And that the forces that want to forbid abortion are interfering with free will. They are trying to play the role of God.
Oh, definitely. I think so.
And that is really something that they should not be doing. And this is true of a lot of the culture war subjects, where the so-called churches want to tell people what to do instead of just saying, maybe that's not such a good idea. They want to say, we're going to put you in jail. You do that, we're going to put you in jail. And anyway, I'll blame it on Dante. I'm not sure I had this position before I was reading Dante, but this is where Dante, my reading of Dante and talking with you all, this is kind of where I'm going.
Yeah, but I can also see the argument that society does create laws that we must follow.
Yes.
Whether it's if you murder somebody, you're going to pay a price. If you drive incorrectly, or you're going to pay a price. I think that's where the right to life people take over the argument that
Hmm.
we have free will in so many aspects of our life, but free will does not apply the question of abortion.
Yeah, I think it does very much so.
You think it
think a
does?
lot-
And yeah,
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That's it. I think that's the crux of the whole thing.
Yeah,
I think that element has decided that doctors are amongst the bad guys. And so the doctors can't help a patient make a decision, that there has to be a law that will, and of course, it's a superficial view of
The situation.
each situation.
yeah, well, of course, if the argument being that if that were their position, then why would they not support Medicare for all? Why would they not support basic nutritional support and basic housing?
Voting against those things.
And they're voting against those things.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just wanted to share this is kind of how the reading of the Commedia,
Yeah.
700-year-old book, is affecting me, that it's leading me into these issues which I have not considered, or at least not considered at these levels before.
Yeah.
How about if it's really almost 3:30, we read to the end unless we have a serious top question that must be, it's urgent question, because
Lead on.
okay. So this is the end. That was the end of Benedict's counseling. Thus unto me, he said, and then withdrew to his own band, and the band closed together like a whirlwind, all was upward wrapped. The gentle lady urged me on behind them, up o'er the stairway by a single sign. So did her virtue overcome my nature. Not here below, where one goes up and down by natural law, was motion air so swift that it could be compared unto my wing. Someone can continue. This is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, I'll read. Reader, as I may unto that devout triumph return, on whose account I often for my transgressions weep and beat my breast. Thou hadst not thrust thy finger in the fire and drawn it out again before I saw the sign that follows Taurus and was in it. O glorious stars, O light impregnated with mighty virtue, from which I acknowledge all of my genius, whatsoever it be. With you was born and hid himself with you, he who is father of all mortal life, when first I tasted of the Tuscan air.
Okay,
And
let me stop
Yeah.
you just to mention that the sign that follows Taurus is Gemini, and Dante was a Gemini.
Okay,
Okay, you can continue now. I just want to bring that point
I'll
out.
just read one more. And then when grace was freely given to me to enter the high wheel, which turns you round, your region was allotted unto me. To you devotedly at this hour, my soul is sighing that it virtue may acquire for the stern past that draws it to itself.
Okay.
Next.
Maybe John, you're back in the house. Can you read?
I think so, if they don't pound too loud up there.
Okay, well, read as long as you can, and if they get loud,
Loud. Thou art so near unto the last salvation. The speechless began, thou oughtest now to have thine eyes unclouded and acute. And therefore, ere thou enter farther in, look down once more and see how vast a world thou hast already put beneath thy feet, so that thy heart, as jocund as it may, present itself to the triumphant throng that comes rejoicing through this rounded ether. I with
love
my
that.
sight.
Wait, John, I just love that. This jocund of good cheer, that's joyful, like Joyce in Finnegan's Wake. That was his point, that we be joyful. Keep reading. I just wanted to say that.
I with my sight returned through one and all the sevenfold spheres, and I beheld this globe, such that I smiled at its ignoble semblance. And that opinion I approve as best, which doth account it least, and he who thinks of something else may truly be called just. I saw the daughter of Latona shining, without that shadow, which to me was cause that once I had believed her rare and dense.
Okay, can I stop? Who's Latona?
She's
The
the
moon.
mother of Apollo and Diana in Latin, or Artemis in Greek. And those goddesses, her daughter, is associated with the moon.
Okay, great. Okay.
So, and then in the next line, he mentions Hyperion, who was a Titan, and one of his sons is Helios in Greek, of the sun. So he's talking about the moon and the sun here.
Okay.
And the two children, Maya and Dion.
Yeah, they're part of a constellation, and I'm not sure which one, but one of the constellations.
Okay.
The
Continue on.
aspect of
I
the
have
sun.
Maya is the daughter of Atlas, produced by Jupiter, produced Mercury
No,
by
Maya and
Jupiter.
Dione are, I think, other children of Hyperion, if I'm not misremembering.
Diane's child was Venus.
Well, these are Maya and Dione.
Dione.
It is Venus.
Dione's child was Venus. Maya was the daughter of Atlas and produced Mercury by Jupiter. So we have Mercury and Venus.
The planets.
Yeah.
So we have the sun and the moon and the planets.
Okay.
Keep reading.
Okay.
Yeah.
The aspect of thy son Hyperion, here I sustain, and saw how move themselves around and near him Maya and Dione. Thence there appeared the temperateness of Jove twixt son and father, and to me was clear the change that of their whereabouts they made. And all the seven made manifest to me how great they are, and eke how swift they are, and how they are in distant habitation. The threshing floor that maketh us so proud, to me revolving with the eternal twins, was all apparent made from hill to harbor. Then to the beauteous eyes, mine eyes I turned.
Wow. This is so curious, because just in the same canto, we had Benedict assaulting the people who worshiped Apollo. And there's all those verses about how he converted those people, and they converted the people in the countryside. And now we're back again to the Roman gods.
And apparently they're in paradise.
Let's see, but
Are they in or are they referred to?
It seems like he's seeing them there, those lights in paradise.
He's looking back down. He's looking down and seeing all this.
Is this looking
to Earth.
looking behind? Oh yeah. And I with my 133, and I with my sight returned through one and all the sevenfold spheres, and I beheld this globe, such that I smiled at its ignoble semblance. Yeah, you're right, Tim. He's looking back.
So it's not those
He's looking back at all he has traversed,
Yeah,
the path that he has come,
yeah.
all through the different spheres, the heavens, the Mercury, Venus,
And those
Which
the
are
is-
moon.
Greek
Which
gods.
is, which is very interesting because he's saying from the Imperium, he can see the solar system underneath him. Or he's on the level of Saturn now, which is getting closer to the Imperium. And looking back, he's above all of those planets.
Right, and those spheres are the levels of paradise that he's come up through.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars that he mentions there are Jove twixt son and father.
Jove is Saturn, right? Is Jove Saturn?
No, Jove is Jupiter.
Jove is Jupiter. Okay,
and
which was
Saturn
just below
and
Saturn.
Mars.
That Saturn is Jupiter's father.
Yeah, so you've got Jupiter between father and son, between Saturn and Mars.
So the
Mhm.
heavens here in the diagram, the moon is first, then Mercury, then Venus, then the sun, then Mars, then Jupiter, then Saturn, and then we're coming to the heaven of fixed stars next week.
Hmm. Okay. Congratulations, everybody, by the way. I think we
Yeah, I
we
like
have
how we're doing
covered
this.
Canto 22 pretty well.
Yeah,
It's a good working together on this. It's
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
I like reading the
couldn't do it alone.
yeah, I like reading the whole thing first and then going back over it and
Mhm.
parsing the sections. It's
Mhm.
very nice.
Yeah.
We have to keep remembering this was all Tim's idea.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. That was a combination. Actually, I remember Ann Meisner had a very big hand, and you did too, Dee Dee. And
Yeah, but Tim
making
Tim
this-
started.
It was a collaboration.
yeah,
Well, we agreed with you when the idea popped up.
yeah, right
Yeah.
away. Sounded good.
It
an idea whose time had come.
was
Yeah.
definitely.
But this was, I must say, this was the word easier comes to mind, an easier canto. I mean, some of our cantos are so dense with references to things we do have to look up and try to understand.
Yeah, Barolini mentioned that we get a little bit of a break for a
Mhm.
couple of canto before we go back into the heavy lifting again.
Yeah.
But this was sufficiently complex and had
Yeah.
enough things that we needed to go over, and we did a good job. In my
Thank you.
humble opinion, I'm very humble.
That wasn't a laugh at you, was it?
But
Okay.
yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you. I think
Thank
I'll press
you.
the red button and
Yeah.
You're off to
say,
the races.
see you next week, John. I'm very glad you came back.
I
And welcome to
be
Cleveland Heights.
close to normal now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go.